my son what his father had quietly hidden in the old storage unit. After my husband passed away, my son married a money-hungry woman. She was attentive, helpful, always by my side. I let her believe that I needed her. While I was at home trying to sort through the unfinished matters my husband left behind, my phone suddenly rang. It was the storage manager calling, his voice trembling as he said, "Ma'am, they're here. They're breaking the lock to get inside the unit." I didn't rush over. I had been waiting for this moment for a long time. And what they triggered next would change everything. Thank you for being here. Before we continue, tell me where you're watching from today. Drop it in the comments below. A quick note, parts of this story are dramatized for storytelling and educational purposes, but the message behind it is meant to be helpful. The call came at 4:47 p.m. on a Tuesday in April. I was in Richard's office when my phone buzzed. Victor Stone's name flashed on the screen. "Mrs. Westbrook," he said, his voice tight. "Someone's at Unit 7A with a battery-powered angle grinder. They're breaching the door." I walked to the window. Rain fell softly, turning the city gray. "Who is it?" I asked, though I already knew. "Your son, ma'am, Trevor Westbrook. He's with a woman." "Vanessa, of course." "Should I call the police?" Victor asked. "No," I said quietly. "Let him finish. Lock the exterior gates. Tell him the system malfunctioned. Don't let him leave." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." I hung up and looked at the desk. 15 months since Richard died here. 15 months since he handed me the key, the coordinates, and the letter. If Trevor finds this, you'll know what to do. Everything you need is already in place. I opened my laptop and pulled up the live feed from Unit 7A. The cameras were hidden in the ceiling tiles. Trevor knelt before the steel door, the battery-powered angle grinder screaming in his hands. He'd brought 3 extra battery packs. This was going to take a while. Orange sparks erupted as the grinding disc bit into the metal. His face was tight with desperation. Behind him, Vanessa stood with her arms crossed, phone in hand, bored, impatient. She had no idea what she'd walked into. I called Frank Donovan. "It's happening," I said. Right now, Trevor just triggered the protocol. He's cutting through with an angle grinder." Frank exhaled. 72 hours. 72 hours, I repeated. "Friday night we end this." "We could arrest them now," he said. "We have enough." "No," I said. "If we arrest them now, Vanessa walks on reduced charges. But if we let them come to dinner Friday and confess on camera, we bury them. 25 years, Frank, not 5. He was quiet. Then, "You can handle 3 more days." I looked at the screen. Trevor was still cutting. Vanessa was checking her watch. "I've been handling it for 8 months, I said. "I can handle 3 more days." "All right," Frank said. "I'll coordinate with Detective Moss. Units on standby Friday night." "Good." I hung up and sat down. On the screen, Trevor finally broke through the door. He wiped sweat from his forehead and pulled it open. He stepped inside. I watched his face change. No safe, no cash, no stock certificates. Just a small wooden table. And on it, a single photograph. Trevor picked it up. Even through the grainy feed, I could see his hands shaking. It was a picture of him at 5 years old holding Richard's hand, standing in front of the timber mill, smiling. Richard had left it there on purpose. Trevor stared at it. Then he crumpled it and threw it across the room. "Where is it?" he shouted, his voice echoed. "Where's the money?" Vanessa stepped inside, looked around, and pulled out her phone. Trevor kicked the table. "He lied to me." Or she moved it. She knew. "Calm down," Vanessa said coldly. "We'll figure it out." But they didn't know the truth. Richard had moved the real safe 3 months before he died, 2 floors down behind a false wall. What Trevor had just broken into was exactly what Richard wanted him to find, nothing but a reminder of what he'd lost. And the moment Trevor's angle grinder cut into that door, an encrypted file had been sent to 3 places: the Portland Police Department, the District Attorney's Office, and the FBI. Inside that file was everything video evidence of Trevor's 2017 embezzlement recordings of Vanessa and Douglas Crane planning my death, and a legal affidavit signed by Richard 2 weeks before he passed. The 72-hour countdown had begun. Trevor thought he'd been outsmarted by his dead father. He thought I'd moved the money. He had no idea he'd just walked into a trap that would destroy him. I closed the laptop. 3 more days. and then I would tell him exactly what his greed had cost. But the fight didn't begin that Tuesday afternoon. It started 6 months after Richard's funeral on a warm August evening when Trevor brought her home. "Mom, I want you to meet someone." I stood at the doorway watching my son climb the porch steps with a woman I'd never seen. She was 32, blonde, with a smile that belonged in advertisements. "This is Vanessa Clark," Trevor said, voice bright. "We got married last week." "Married, last week, no invitation." Vanessa extended her hand. "Mrs. Westbrook Trevor has told me so much about Richard. I wish I could have met him." Her grip was firm, her eyes warm, her voice carried perfect sympathy. I should have trusted my instincts, but I was lonely grieving and Trevor looked happy. So I smiled. "Call me Diane, welcome to the family." August became September. September became October. And slowly I started falling apart. It began with exhaustion sleep couldn't fix. I'd wake after 8 hours feeling like I'd run a marathon. My coffee tasted metallic. My hands trembled. In September, I missed a step going downstairs. Caught the railing, but my hip bruised purple. Vanessa arrived with ice packs. "Diane, you need to be careful. These staircases are dangerous." In October, I forgot a meeting with Patricia Howell, our attorney. 30 years of perfect appointments gone. Vanessa suggested a doctor. "It's probably stress. I'll drive you." In November, I left the stove on. Burned soup until the smoke alarm screamed. I stood staring at the blackened pot, unable to remember putting it there. Vanessa opened windows, made tea. "This is serious. You could have started a fire. Maybe we need other arrangements, somewhere with more support." Trevor nodded when she told him. I saw it from the hallway, gratitude in his eyes, and something else. Hope. Hope I'd agree. Hope this problem would solve itself. By December, my hands shook so badly I couldn't hold coffee. Vanessa brought vitamins. "These help my grandmother. Take 2 every morning." I took them. She was family, or so I thought. But I've always been a watcher. Even through exhaustion, some part of me stayed alert. I noticed how Vanessa always prepared my vitamins, always touched my food first, always present when symptoms worsened. I noticed how she spoke to Trevor quietly, suggestions about assisted living, comments about my declining health, words that sounded like concern but felt like something else. I noticed how she looked at the house, not like family, like someone taking inventory. One night in late December, after everyone slept, I went downstairs. The house was dark except for the kitchen light Vanessa left on. I opened her vitamin bottle, shook one into my palm. It looked normal. But normal things don't make hands shake, don't erase routine, don't make you fall downstairs you've climbed 10,000 times. I found a Ziploc bag, dropped 3 pills inside, hid it in Richard's desk. Then I stood in that dark kitchen and made a decision. I needed someone who knew how to uncover truth without making noise. Someone who understood that dangerous people smile while they hurt you. Through the doorway, I saw Vanessa's coat, her purse, the vitamin bottle placed where I'd see it every morning. I took one more vitamin and watched it dissolve in the sink, swirling like the lie she'd fed me for months. The next morning, I'd make that call. But standing there at 2 a.m, I stopped being just a widow. I became something else. Someone who wouldn't go quietly. Someone who would fight back. I whispered to the empty room, "I need to find someone I can trust. Someone who knows how to expose the truth without making a sound." And in that moment, everything changed. The next morning, I called Frank Donovan. We met at a small cafe in the Pearl District at 6 a.m. before the city woke up. Frank was already there when I arrived, sitting in the back corner with 2 cups of coffee. He'd been Richard's oldest friend, 40 years on the Portland police force before he retired and opened his own investigation firm. If anyone could help me, it was him. I sat down and slid the Ziploc bag across the table. Inside were 3 pills, small white, identical to the vitamins Vanessa had been giving me every morning for the past 4 months. "I need you to test these," I said, "and I need you to test my blood." Frank picked up the bag and studied it under the cafe's dim light. "What do you think is in them?" "Something that's making me sick," I said. "Something she's been putting in my food, my drinks, everything." He nodded slowly. "I'll take care of it." 2 weeks later, he called. "Come to my office," he said. "You need to see this." Frank's office was above a bookstore on Northwest 23rd. The room smelled like old paper and stale coffee. He had documents spread across his desk, lab reports, toxicology results, chemical analyses. He handed me the first page. Oregon Health and Science University. Blood toxicology report patient. Diane Westbrook. Date January 15th, 2025. Arsenic concentration 0.8 milligrams per liter. Normal range less than 0.03 milligrams per liter. I stared at the numbers. My hands started shaking. "You're being poisoned," Frank said quietly, slowly, deliberately. "If you'd kept taking those pills for another 6 months, you would have experienced complete liver failure. Another year and you'd be gone." He handed me the second report, the analysis of the pills. Each capsule contains 2.5 milligrams arsenic trioxide. I felt the air leave my lungs. "We need to arrest her," I said. "Now." Frank shook his head. "Not yet." "Frank, she's been poisoning me for months. And if we arrest her now," he interrupted, "she gets 5 years for assault with a harmful substance, maybe 10 for attempted harm with aggravating circumstances. But that's not enough, Diane." He leaned forward. "We need to catch her in the act of something bigger. The forged will, the conspiracy with her lawyer, the plan to eliminate your son after she gets the money. If we wait, if we let her think she's winning, we can bury her for 25 years. Maybe life." I stared at him. "You want me to keep pretending I'm dying?" "I want you to control the game," he said. "You've been surviving for 8 months. You can survive 3 more. And when we're done, she won't just lose. She'll be destroyed." I looked down at the arsenic report in my hands. The numbers blurred. "What do I have to do?" "Stop taking her pills," Frank said. "Replace them with real vitamins, but keep acting sick. Fall down the stairs, forget appointments, shake when you hold your coffee cup. Make her think the poison is working." He pulled out a notebook. "I'll start surveillance. I'll follow her, record her conversations, find out who she's working with. And when we have everything, when we have proof of conspiracy, forgery, and planning harm, we move. Not before." I nodded slowly. "How long?" 3 months, he said. "Maybe 4. I need time to build the case." I took a deep breath. "All right, we wait." For the next 3 months, I became an actress. I fell. I forgot. I trembled. I let Vanessa help me to the bathroom. I let her smile and bring me soup and tell Trevor how worried she was about me. And the whole time, Frank was watching. In late April, he called me. It was 10 p.m. I was sitting in the dark in Richard's office staring at the city lights. "Diane," Frank said, "I found something, and it's worse than we thought." My chest tightened. "Tell me." "It's not just the poison," he said. "Vanessa and someone else, a lawyer named Douglas Crane, are planning to eliminate Trevor after they get the money, after they think you're gone." I closed my eyes. "Tell me everything," I said, and Frank did. An hour later, I was in Frank's office. The bookstore below had closed hours ago. The street outside was dark and empty. Frank's desk was covered in documents, photographs, and a laptop open to a surveillance feed. "Show me," I said. Frank turned the laptop toward me. "This is from yesterday afternoon," he said. "Unit 7A. The facility cameras caught everything." He pressed play. The footage was grainy but clear. Trevor knelt in front of the steel door, a battery-powered angle grinder screaming in his hands. Orange sparks erupted as the grinding disc tore into the metal. Behind him, Vanessa stood with her phone watching the hallway. The timestamp read April 23rd, 1:47 p.m. "He was there for 42 minutes, Frank said. "Changed battery packs 3 times. Finally broke through at 2:30. I watched Trevor's face on the screen. Desperate, determined. "And this," Frank said, pulling up another file. 3 weeks ago, Trevor purchased a heavy-duty battery-powered angle grinder and 6 metal cutting discs at the Gresham Home Depot. Paid cash. $240. He showed me the receipt. The timestamp was clear. March 30th, 3:17 p.m. "He was planning this for weeks," Frank said. I stared at the receipt. Trevor had bought the tools 3 weeks ago. The same week, Richard's estate went into probate. "What else?" I asked. Frank pulled up a second window bank statements. On March 15th, Trevor transferred $5,000 to Brian Mills. The memo line says, "Consulting fee." "Who's Brian Mills?" "Security guard at the storage facility," Frank said. 20 years on the job. Clean record until now. I'm guessing Trevor bribed him to look the other way. He clicked to another page. And on April 1st, Vanessa withdrew $50,000 in cash from the joint account she shares with Trevor. No explanation. Just walked into the bank and took it. I felt my chest tighten. $50,000. She's preparing to run, I said. Or pay someone off, Frank replied. He opened a third file, an email thread recovered from Trevor's laptop. From Trevor Westbrook to Vanessa Clark. Date March 20th, 2025. Subject no subject. Are you sure this will work? From Vanessa Clark to Trevor Westbrook. Date March 20th, 2025. She won't. She's getting weaker every day. Just stick to the plan. I read the email again and again. She's getting weaker every day. Vanessa had been so sure, so confident. There's more, Frank said quietly. He pulled up a photograph of Vanessa sitting across from a man in a cafe. The man was in his 50s, graying hair, wearing a suit. This is Douglas Crane, Frank said, attorney, estate law. He was disbarred in 2019 for forging signatures on probate documents, got his license back 2 years ago. And he's working with Vanessa, I said. They've been meeting every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 6 weeks, Frank said. Same cafe, Northwest 23rd. I've been following her since February. He opened another folder, more photographs. Vanessa and Douglas at a table, documents spread between them. Vanessa handing him an envelope, Douglas nodding. What are they doing? I asked. Frank leaned back in his chair. They're forging Richard's will, he said. Changing the terms, removing the safeguards he put in place, making it easier for Trevor to access the estate without conditions. My hands curled into fists. Can we stop them? We can, Frank said. But not yet. If we move now, they'll destroy the evidence. We need to catch them in the act. We need them to present the forged will to the probate court. And then we bury them, he said. Fraud, conspiracy, forgery. Vanessa goes away for 25 years. Douglas loses his license permanently. Trevor becomes an accessory. I looked at the screen, at Trevor's face, at Vanessa's cold smile, at Douglas Crane's calculating eyes. How long? I asked. A week, Frank said. Maybe 2. They're moving fast. I stood up. My legs felt unsteady. We're running out of time, I said. Frank nodded. I know, he said, but we're ready. I looked at him, at the evidence spread across his desk, at the years of friendship and trust between him and Richard. Thank you, I said quietly. He nodded. Let's finish this. I came home that afternoon and climbed the stairs to Richard's office. The room looked the same as it had 15 months ago. The oak desk, the leather chair, the painting of the Willamette River at sunrise mounted on the wall above the filing cabinet. I walked to the painting and lifted it off its hooks. Behind it was a small wall safe. Richard had shown it to me 2 weeks before he passed. He'd written the combination on a card and tucked it into my wallet. 1-2-0-1-2-4. January 20th, 2024. The day he died. I entered the code. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Inside was a single black USB drive labeled in Richard's handwriting. For Diane if Trevor finds the storage unit. I pulled it out and sat down at Richard's desk. My hands were shaking as I plugged the drive into the laptop. 3 files appeared on the screen. File 1, Trevor _ embezzlement _ 2 017.pdf. 47 pages. Bank statements, forged invoices, wire transfer records. Trevor had stolen $6 million from Westbrook Timber and Real Estate in 2017. He'd created a shell company called Pacific Lumber Consulting and funneled money from fake contracts into his personal accounts. He'd forged Richard's signature on 12 documents. Richard had discovered it in late 2017. He'd confronted Trevor, fired him, but he didn't call the police. At the bottom of the document, Richard had written a single line in red. I gave him one chance. He wasted it. File 2, the _trap _ plan.docx. This was Richard's blueprint for the storage unit. He'd transferred $18 million in December 2023, 3 weeks before he died. $8 million in cash, $7 million in stock certificates, $3 million in real estate deeds. But that wasn't everything. Richard had written, Our family's total net worth is $32 million. $18 million is now secured in Unit 7A, the most liquid assets, the easiest to steal. The remaining $14 million is tied up in the house the company shares and other properties that can't be easily liquidated. I moved the liquid assets into the storage unit because I knew Trevor would come looking. If he tries to break in, the trap will spring. The moment an unauthorized breach occurs, the system will 1. Alert Diane immediately. 2. Freeze all of Trevor's access to family accounts for 72 hours. 3. Record video and audio of the breach. 4. Send copies of all evidence to Patricia Howell, our attorney, the FBI, and the Portland Police Department. At the bottom, Richard had added, Diane, if you're reading this, then Trevor found the unit, and you stopped him. I'm so proud of you. File 32_wills.pdf. This file contained 2 documents side by side. Will 1, real dated December 15, 2023, notarized by Patricia Howell, 60% of the estate to Diane, 40% to Trevor conditional on Trevor completing rehabilitation and not accessing the storage unit for at least 2 years. Will 2, fake template, same date, same notary, but reversed 60% to Trevor, 40% to Diane. No conditions. Richard had written a note at the top. Diane used UV light to verify the real will. I had Patricia printed on Westbrook custom paper the specialty stock from our mill that contains microscopic fibers embedded with our family's unique hexagonal watermark. No one outside our company has access to this paper. Douglas Crane or any other forger can buy the best paper on the market, but they'll never replicate ours. Under UV light, the real will glows. The forgery won't. I sat back in the chair, staring at the screen. Richard had known. He'd known Trevor would try this. He'd known someone would help him. And he'd built a trap so precise, so airtight, that there was no escape. I closed the files and held the USB drive in my hand. Then I opened the desk drawer and pulled out the 2 wills, the one Patricia Howell had given me after Richard's funeral, and the one Trevor had presented 3 months ago, claiming he'd found it in a safe deposit box. I laid them side by side on the desk. It was time to see which one was real. I sat at Richard's desk until 2 in the morning. The 2 wills lay side by side under the desk lamp, identical. Both dated December 15th, 2023. Both notarized by Patricia Howell. Both looked official, expensive, legitimate. But only one was real. I opened the desk drawer and pulled out the UV flashlight Richard had kept there. Small black, the kind forensic investigators use at crime scenes. I'd almost forgotten what Richard had told me about the paper. I'm in the timber and paper business, sweetheart, he'd said 6 months before he passed. I've spent 30 years sourcing specialty materials. This will isn't just printed on expensive paper, it's printed on Westbrook custom stock. He'd shown me a sample. It looked like ordinary high-quality parchment. But under UV light, it revealed a hidden watermark, a hexagonal pattern embedded with microscopic fibers unique to our family's paper mill. Douglas Crane can buy the best forgery-grade paper on the market, Richard had said. But he'll never get his hands on this. It's not for sale. It's ours. And under UV light, the difference is unmistakable. I turned off the desk lamp. The room went dark. I held the UV flashlight over the first will, the one Patricia Howell had given me after Richard's funeral. I clicked the light on. The page glowed. A faint blue watermark appeared in the top right corner, Patricia Howell's law firm logo embedded in the paper itself. Along the left margin, hidden text became visible. Original document, 2023. Richard's signature at the bottom glowed gold anti-forgery ink that only appeared under UV light. And across the entire page, faint but unmistakable, was the hexagonal pattern, tiny interlocking shapes woven into the paper fibers. This was the real will. I set it aside and picked up the second will, the one Trevor had given me 3 months ago. I held the UV light over it. Nothing. The page stayed white, blank, ordinary. No watermark, no hidden text, no anti-forgery ink, no hexagonal pattern. Just expensive paper. Nothing more. I set it down and turned the lamp back on. Trevor's will was a forgery, and I had proof. I took out my phone and snapped photos of both documents, first under normal light, then under UV. I saved them in 3 places: my phone, Richard's laptop, and a secure cloud folder Frank had set up for me. Then I opened my laptop and searched Douglas Crane Attorney, Portland, Oregon. The results came up immediately. Douglas Crane Esquire, Estate Planning and Probate Law, licensed 2001, suspended 2019, reinstated 2021. I clicked on the Oregon State Bar disciplinary records. Case number 2019-047, falsification of legal documents. Douglas Crane had been reprimanded in 2019 for forging signatures on estate documents for 3 separate clients. He'd been fined $50,000 and suspended for 6 months. He'd returned to practice in 2020, specializing in discrete estate services for high-net-worth clients. In other words, people who needed someone willing to bend the rules. Vanessa had found the perfect partner. I looked at the 2 wills on the desk. One told the truth. One was a lie. And now I knew which was which. I picked up my phone and texted Frank. "I have proof. The will is forged. I need you to find out who made it and when." His reply came 2 minutes later. "Already on it. I've been watching Douglas Crane's office for 3 weeks. I have recordings. I'll send them tomorrow morning." I set the phone down and looked at the clock. It was nearly 3 a.m. In a few hours, Frank would show me the evidence, and then we would know the full scope of what Vanessa and Douglas Crane had been planning. But for now, I sat in the dark holding the proof in my hands. Trevor had tried to steal my husband's legacy, but Richard had made sure I would win. By 10 that morning, I sat across from Frank again. He'd closed the office door, drawn the blinds. His laptop glowed in the dimmed room. On screen, a folder labeled Vanessa_Douglas, _surveillance, _February to April, _2025. 6 weeks of monitoring, Frank said quietly. "Diane, what you're about to hear, there's no preparing for it." I straightened in my chair. "Show me." He clicked the first file. February 12th, 3:15 p.m., Northwest Portland Cafe. Audio began. Background noise, espresso machines, murmured conversations, then 2 voices cut through clearly. Vanessa's voice, sharp and businesslike. "How long until the will is finalized?" Douglas Crane's deeper tone. "It's done. Filed with probate court last week. Unless someone challenges with concrete evidence, it stands." And the old woman. A pause, then Douglas. "How is she?" "Weaker every day, maybe 4 to 6 months if we're lucky." My hands clenched. "And Trevor?" Vanessa's laugh was cold. "He's useful for now. After we access the storage money, we'll deal with him." Frank paused the recording. "That was mid-February, 2 weeks after we discovered the toxic substance." "Play the next one," I said. He clicked again. February 26th, same location. Douglas's voice uncertain. "What do you mean, deal with him?" "Come on, Douglas. You're not naive. Trevor's a liability. He's weak, he talks when he drinks, he's unreliable. Once we have the money, he becomes a problem we can't afford." "Vanessa, I agreed to create the false will. I didn't agree to what exactly are you suggesting. I'm suggesting accidents happen. People drive intoxicated. They crash. Trevor has a history with beverages. It wouldn't raise questions." Silence stretched on the recording. Then Douglas slowly, "You're serious?" "I'm always serious about $32 million. Are you in or out?" Another long pause. "I'm in, but we do this my way. Clean, no traces." Frank stopped the audio. "That's conspiracy to commit the ultimate crime, Diane. Premeditated, calculated." "There's more," I said, not a question. "One more, March 5th. This time Vanessa's voice came through, excited, energized. "I found someone at the storage facility. Brian Mills, security guard. He'll let Trevor break in, make it look like Trevor acted alone. Then when Trevor gets taken in, we bail him out and—" Her voice dropped lower. I had to lean toward the speaker. "And then the accident. Grieving widow inherits everything. No other heirs. $32 million, Douglas. We split 60-40. "I want 50. "Fine, 50-50. But Trevor has to be handled within a month after we secure the funds." Frank closed the laptop. The office felt smaller, the air thicker. "She's planning to eliminate him," I whispered. "My son. She married him to access Richard's estate, and once she has it, Trevor becomes disposable. Not just planning, Frank said. She's already set everything in motion. The forged will, the bribe to Mills, getting Trevor to break into the storage. It's all designed to give her legal access to the money, then remove him permanently. I stood paced to the window. Outside, Portland moved through its ordinary morning. People buying coffee, walking dogs, living normal lives. Mine had become something else entirely. "I need you to contact Detective Sarah Moss," I said, turning back to Frank. "Richard knew her from the Veterans Association. She's trustworthy. Get arrest warrants prepared for Vanessa, Trevor, and Douglas. Conspiracy charges, fraud, attempted harm. When? Friday night. I'm inviting them to dinner, 7 p.m. I want you to set up cameras and audio recording in my house beforehand. I'm going to confront them with everything: the forged will, the toxic substances, these recordings. And when they're caught on camera admitting it, Sarah and her team move in." Frank studied me. "Diane, this is dangerous. Vanessa has already proven she's willing to harm people who stand in her way. I know." I met his eyes. "But Trevor needs to hear this. He needs to understand what his wife really is before he's arrested. And I need Vanessa to confess on record in front of witnesses with no way to deny it later." Frank nodded slowly. "I'll call Sarah this afternoon." I pulled out my phone and typed, "Trevor, come to the house Friday night for dinner. You and Vanessa, 7 p.m. I need to discuss Dad's estate with both of you. Don't refuse this. It's the last time I'll ask." I hit send. The message showed delivered. Then 3 dots appeared. Trevor was typing. His reply came through moments later. "Mom, why now? You've been avoiding us for months. What's this really about?" I sat at the kitchen table Thursday morning, coffee growing cold in front of me. Through the window, the Willamette River reflected gray April sky. I typed carefully, choosing each word like placing stones across a river. "Trevor, I know you tried to access your father's storage unit. Victor called me. I don't want this to escalate into something worse. We need to talk as a family about the estate and what comes next. I promise I'll listen to your side." The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then my phone rang. "Mom." Trevor's voice sounded strained, tired. "I don't believe this. You've been cold to me since Dad died. Now suddenly you want family dinner." I took a breath, letting my voice soften into the tone of a grieving widow. Weak, hurt, vulnerable. "Sweetheart, I haven't been cold. I've been in pain. Your father's gone and I've been trying to hold everything together. But I see now that pushing you away only makes things worse." I paused. "I know you need access to what your father left. I know you're struggling financially. But the way you're going about this, breaking into the storage, that's not how your father would have wanted this." "Mom, I just need what's mine. Dad promised." "Then come talk to me. Friday night, bring Vanessa. Let's sit down like adults and figure this out. If you still want to involve lawyers after, fine. But give me one chance to explain what your father actually wanted for you." Silence stretched between us. "Vanessa doesn't trust this," he said finally. "Vanessa doesn't have to trust me. But Trevor, I'm your mother. I raised you. I love you despite everything. Doesn't that count for something?" More silence, then, "Okay, we'll come, 7 p.m. Friday, but Mom, please, don't make this harder than it already is. I promise you'll have answers to everything. 7 p.m. I'll see you then." After we hung up, I immediately called Frank. They agreed. "Friday, 7 p.m. Can you install the equipment? Thursday afternoon. So bye. I'll be there at 2. "You're sure about this, Diane?" "I've been sure since the day Richard gave me that key 15 months ago. I just didn't know what I was preparing for." Across town in the apartment Trevor and Vanessa shared, she stood at the window watching traffic below. "What did she say?" Vanessa asked without turning. Trevor sat on their couch phone, still in hand. "She knows about the storage, wants to talk about Dad's estate. She sounded different, softer. She's playing you. Maybe. Or maybe she's just tired of fighting." He looked up at his wife. "Vanessa, she's my mother. She lost her husband. Can we at least hear her out?" Vanessa turned, studying him with those cold, calculating eyes he'd somehow convinced himself showed love. "Of course we can, baby." She crossed to him, perched on the couch, arm ran fingers through his hair. "We'll go, we'll listen. And if she tries anything, we'll handle it." After Trevor went to shower, Vanessa pulled out her phone and texted Douglas Crane. "We're going to her house Friday night. Be ready. If she knows anything, we need to act fast." His reply came immediately. "I'll have contingency plans prepared. Don't worry." Vanessa deleted the message thread and slipped her phone back in her pocket. She walked to their bedroom window. Below, Portland moved through its ordinary rhythms. People heading to work, living their small, predictable lives. Soon she'd have 32 million reasons to leave this city forever. Leave Trevor, leave Diane, leave this whole tedious charade behind. Trevor emerged from the bathroom, toweling his hair. "I'm nervous about Friday." Vanessa smiled the same perfect smile she'd worn the day they met. "Don't be nervous, honey. Everything's going to work out exactly as planned." He nodded, wanting desperately to believe her. She turned back to the window, her smile shifting into something harder, colder. She whispered to her own reflection, too quiet for Trevor to hear. "Soon this will all be over." They arrived exactly at 7. I opened the door to find Trevor on the porch steps, hands shoved in his jacket pockets, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Behind him stood Vanessa in a cream-colored dress, her smile perfect and practiced. "Come in," I said simply. The dining room table was set for 3. Simple meal roasted chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. The kind of dinner I'd made 1,000 times when Trevor was growing up. We ate in near silence for the first 40 minutes. Trevor attempted conversation. "Mom, the food is good. Thanks for inviting us. This is still your home, sweetheart. You grew up here." I set down my fork. "I just wanted moments like this before everything changes." Vanessa's eyes narrowed slightly. "Diane, you look much better tonight. These past months when I visited, you seemed so frail, but tonight you seem sharper, clearer." I met her gaze across the table. "Perhaps because I stopped taking those vitamins you gave me." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Trevor looked between us confused. "Mom, what are you—" I stood, walked to the sideboard, and picked up the vitamin bottle Vanessa had given me in December. I placed it in the center of the table with a soft click. "Do you remember these, Vanessa? You gave them to me last December. Said they'd help with my tremors. I took them for 2 months. Then I started falling, forgetting things. My hands shook so badly I couldn't hold a coffee cup." Vanessa's expression remained perfectly composed. "Diane, those are standard supplements. If you had adverse reactions, that's unfortunate, but—" "Adverse reactions?" I almost laughed. "Is that what we're calling it?" Trevor pushed back from the table slightly. "Mom, I don't understand what's happening." I looked at my son, my baby boy, who'd grown into a man I barely recognized, and for a moment grief threatened to overwhelm me. But I'd come too far to stop now. "Trevor, do you remember last September when I fell on the stairs? You and Vanessa came over within an hour." He nodded slowly. "Or October when I forgot my appointment with Patricia Howell. You suggested I see a doctor." "Mom, we were worried about you." "November. I left the stove on, burned a pot of soup. Vanessa suggested I needed other arrangements, somewhere with more support." Trevor's face paled. "We thought you were getting worse. Age stress from losing Dad. December." I kept my voice steady. My hands shook so badly I spilled coffee all over this table. "Vanessa brought me these vitamins, said they'd help." I tapped the bottle. "Do you know what happened after I started taking them?" No one answered. "I got worse, weaker, more confused, more dependent." I leaned forward. "Until January when I had them tested and discovered exactly what Vanessa had been feeding me for months." Vanessa stood abruptly. "I don't have to listen to these accusations." "Sit down," I said quietly. "We're not finished." Something in my voice made her hesitate. For the first time since I'd met her, I saw a flicker of uncertainty cross her face. She sat. I walked to the sideboard and picked up 3 manila envelopes I'd prepared, each labeled clearly in black marker. Envelope 1, the forgery. Envelope 2, the poison. Envelope 3, the betrayal. I placed them on the table between the roasted chicken and the vitamin bottle. Trevor stared at them. "Mom, what is this?" "This is the truth about your wife, about your father's estate, about what the 2 of you have been planning." I met Vanessa's eyes. Or should I say what Vanessa and Douglas Crane have been planning while using you as their pawn? Trevor's head snapped toward Vanessa. Douglas Crane, who's... We'll get to that. I picked up the first envelope. But first, let's talk about forgery. I looked at both of them, my son, who'd chosen greed over family, and the woman who'd married him to gain access to wealth she'd never earned. My voice was ice. Let's start with how you forged your father's will. I opened the first envelope slowly, deliberately. Let them watch. Let them wonder what evidence I'd gathered while they thought I was dying. 2 documents slid out onto the table between the dinner plates, side by side, identical in appearance. These are both dated December 15th, 2023, both notarized, both bearing your father's signature. I looked at Trevor, but only one is real. Trevor leaned forward, studying them. They look the same. That's the point of a good forgery. I pointed to the document on the left. This is the will Patricia Howell gave me after your father's funeral. It leaves 60% of his estate to me. 40% to you, conditional on completing rehabilitation and not accessing the storage unit for 2 years. I moved my finger to the right document. This is the will you presented 3 weeks ago. The one you said came from Dad's personal safe deposit box. It reverses the percentages. 60% to you, 40% to me. No conditions, no waiting period. That's what Dad told me, Trevor said, voice rising. He said I'd get the majority because I was supposed to carry on the business. Your father never said that. I kept my voice level. But someone convinced you he did. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the small UV flashlight. There's a simple way to determine authenticity. Your father knew people would try to forge his will, so he had Patricia use specialized materials. I switched off the dining room lights. In the darkness, I clicked on the UV beam. The left document, my copy, came alive under ultraviolet light. Blue watermarks bloomed in the corner. Patricia Howell's law firm seal glowed bright. Hidden text appeared along the margin. Original document, 2023. Richard's signature shimmered gold. I moved the light to Trevor's document. Nothing. The paper stayed blank white. No watermarks, no hidden text, no glowing signature. Just ordinary paper and standard ink. I turned the lights back on. Trevor stared at both documents, face draining of color. I didn't know. Mom, I swear someone gave me that will and said it was legitimate. Who gave it to you, Trevor? He looked at Vanessa. You did. You said your attorney friend found it in Dad's safe deposit box at the bank. You said it was the real one. Vanessa's expression remained perfectly calm. Trevor, your mother is manipulating you. I have no idea what she's talking about. If someone forged a will, it wasn't me. I pulled a second set of papers from the envelope, surveillance photographs, 8 of them, each time-stamped and dated. I spread them across the table. Vanessa sitting in a cafe with a middle-aged man in an expensive suit. February 8th, 3:15 p.m. February 15th, 3:15 p.m. February 22nd. Every Tuesday for 6 weeks. This is Douglas Crane, I said, attorney specializing in estate law. He was disbarred in 2019 for forging signatures on real estate contracts. He got his license back in 2020 and immediately started working with clients who needed creative legal solutions. Trevor picked up one of the photos. His hands shook. Vanessa, who is this man? Why were you meeting with him? He's just a legal consultant. I was trying to help you understand your father's estate. He's a convicted forger, I interrupted. And you met with him every week starting in February. The same month the fake will suddenly appeared in your possession. Trevor stood, knocking his chair backward. You told me that will was legitimate. You said Dad wanted me to have control of the company. You said, Trevor, sit down. Vanessa's voice had lost its sweetness. Your mother is creating a narrative. She's trying to turn you against me. No. I shook my head. I'm showing my son the truth. You married him 8 months ago. Immediately started positioning yourself between him and his inheritance. Created a forged will to give him majority control, knowing he'd give you access to everything once you were his wife. I looked at Trevor. Your father left you 40% son. But he made it conditional because he knew you needed to prove you'd changed from the man who embezzled $6 million in 2017. Trevor sank back into his chair, head in his hands. Vanessa stood. I don't have to stay here and listen to these accusations. Yes, you do. My voice was steel, because we're just getting started. I reached for the second envelope, heavier than the first. We've talked about forgery. Now, let's discuss what you've been putting in my vitamins for the past 6 months. I reached for the second envelope. My hands were steady now. Trevor sat frozen in his chair, staring at the 2 wills, still glowing faintly under the UV lamp. Vanessa had gone very still. Her face was a careful mask, but I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her fingers rested too lightly on the edge of the table. I opened the envelope and pulled out a thick stack of medical documents. "This," I said quietly, "is my blood toxicology report from Oregon Health and Science University, dated January 15th, 2025. I set the first page down in front of them. The letterhead was unmistakable. The numbers were highlighted in yellow. Arsenic concentration, 0.8 milligrams per liter. Normal range less than 0.03 milligrams per liter." Trevor leaned forward, squinting at the page. "Mom, what is this?" "It means," I said, "that someone has been putting a harmful substance in my body for months, slowly, carefully." I pulled out the second document, a lab analysis of the vitamin supplements Vanessa had been giving me. The same vitamins she'd handed me every morning with a smile and a glass of water. Each capsule contains 2.5 milligrams arsenic trioxide. Trevor's face went pale. No, that's not. At 2 pills per day. I continued, my voice calm. I would have experienced complete liver failure within 6 months. Total organ shutdown within a year. Vanessa didn't move. She didn't blink. I reached into the envelope one more time and pulled out a purchase receipt. I placed it directly in front of her. "This," I said, "is a receipt from a chemical supply company in Seattle, dated July 2024, 1 month before you married my son." Her eyes flicked down, just once. "Item arsenic trioxide 100 grams. Shipped to Vanessa L. Clark. Signature Vanessa L. Clark. Credit card ending in 4829. Trevor stood up so fast his chair scraped the floor. "Vanessa, tell me this isn't real." She looked up at him. Her face was still calm, almost serene. "Trevor," she said softly, "your mother is confused. She's been unwell for months. You've seen it yourself." "I have," I said, "and you made sure everyone else saw it too." I turned to Trevor. Every time I fell, every time I forgot something, every time my hands shook, she was there. With water, with pills, with concern. Vanessa's lips pressed into a thin line. "She made me weak," I said. "She made me look incompetent. She made you believe I was losing my mind. And when I was gone, she and Douglas Crane would have controlled everything." Trevor's voice cracked. "Mom, are you saying she tried to eliminate me?" I said. "Yes." Vanessa's mask finally slipped. Her voice turned cold. "You were in the way. You didn't need $32 million. You were already old. I was just speeding things along." Trevor staggered back like he'd been slapped. "But here's the thing," I said, leaning forward. "I stopped taking your pills in February. I replaced every single one with actual vitamins. And for the last 3 months, I've been pretending." Vanessa's eyes widened, just slightly. "But the hardest part," I continued, "wasn't stopping the poison. It was pretending I was still dying." I looked directly at her. I had to study myself, learn how my hands shook when the arsenic was at its worst, practice the tremors in front of the mirror every morning, use makeup to make my face look paler, dark circles under my eyes' hollowed cheeks. I dragged my feet when I walked. I forgot things on purpose. I let you help me to the bathroom. I paused, because I knew you were watching me. Every second, every breath. And if I showed even a flicker of strength, you'd know something was wrong. Vanessa's jaw tightened. "For 3 months, I said I was an actress, and you never suspected a thing." I gestured toward the bookshelf. The small lens was barely visible behind the spine of an old atlas. "I was gathering evidence," I said, "and building a case. And right now, Frank Donovan and Detective Sarah Moss from the Portland Police Department are watching this entire conversation on a live feed from the cameras hidden in this room." Trevor turned to look. His face was ashen. "They're on their way here," I said, "and when they arrive, you'll be charged with attempted elimination conspiracy and fraud." Vanessa stood. Her chair scraped the floor. "Sit down," I said. She didn't. I reached for the third envelope, the last one. Now, I said, "Let's talk about betrayal," and I pressed play. If you're still here, drop your guess in one sentence. What do you think that technical problem really was? If you were in my place, what would you do when the truth finally comes out? And just a quick note before the next part, the following story includes some dramatized details for storytelling and educational purposes. If this style isn't for you, feel free to stop watching here. Vanessa's voice filled the room. It came from the speakers hidden behind the bookshelf, clear, cold, unmistakable. February 26th, 2025, 3:22 p.m. "He's becoming a problem." That was Vanessa, flat, businesslike. "Then we handle it," Douglas Crane replied. Trevor's head snapped toward the sound. "How?" Vanessa asked. "An accident. Car goes off the road. Brake failure. It happens." Trevor stood frozen. "And the timeline? Once we have the storage unit unlocked, once we have the $18 million, then we stage it. Trevor gets to be the grieving family's tragic loss." Vanessa laughed softly. "He's weak. He stole $6 million from his father and couldn't keep it. He's useless now." Trevor staggered backward. "Vanessa, you were going to end you," I said quietly. "Yes." Vanessa's eyes stayed on me, cold. "You've been planning this since the day you met him," I said. "The marriage, the will, the storage unit. Once you had the money, he was just another obstacle." Trevor sank into his chair, hands over his face. I stopped the recording. Silence. Trevor looked up, tears streaming. "Mom, I didn't know. I swear." "I know," I said. Vanessa stood. Her chair scraped the floor. "Sit down," I said. She didn't. She turned toward the door. 3 sharp knocks. The door opened. Detective Sarah Moss stepped inside, tall, sharp-eyed Portland police badge on her belt. Behind her, Frank. 3 uniformed officers. "Vanessa Clark," Detective Moss said. "You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit harm attempted elimination and falsification of legal documents." Vanessa didn't run, didn't scream, just stood there. An officer stepped forward with handcuffs. "Trevor Westbrook." Moss continued. "You're also under arrest for conspiracy destruction of secured property and complicity in fraud." Trevor's face crumbled. "No, please." "Mom," he choked. "I'm sorry, I didn't know." The officer pulled his hands back. The cuffs clicked. Trevor dropped to his knees, sobbing. As they led Vanessa toward the door, Detective Moss's radio crackled. "Moss, this is Unit 4 at PDX. We've detained Douglas Crane at the Alaska Airlines gate. He was attempting to board a flight to Grand Cayman. In his carry-on, $200,000 in cash, the exact amount Vanessa Clark withdrew from the joint account last week. We also recovered his laptop containing forged will templates with multiple draft versions dated back to December and a counterfeit notary seal bearing Patricia Howell's name. He's in custody." Detective Moss looked at me and nodded. "All 3 of them Mrs. Westbrook. And we have the evidence to prove everything." Frank walked over. "The storage breach Tuesday triggered everything," he said quietly. "When Trevor's angle grinder cut into that door, Richard's protocol sent an encrypted file to the DAFBI in Portland PD. Inside video of Trevor's 2017 embezzlement recordings of Vanessa and Douglas planning your death, Richard's signed affidavit." He paused. "The 72-hour freeze gave us the legal window for arrest warrants without tipping them off. If we'd moved earlier, they'd have destroyed evidence. Richard's trap forced their hand." I looked at the empty table. The 3 envelopes opened. "He knew," I whispered. "He did," Frank said. "And he gave you everything to win." They led Vanessa out first. She didn't look back. Then Trevor. At the door he turned, face red, tear-streaked. "Mom, please." The officers kept moving. Frank closed the door quietly. "You okay?" he asked. I didn't answer. I looked around the table, still set envelopes scattered. The house was so quiet. Outside, police cars pulled away, red and blue lights fading. I stood alone in the house my husband built. The house my son tried to steal. The house I fought to keep. It was over, but the cost was everything. The house was too quiet. I sat in the dark long after Frank and the officers had gone. The dining room still smelled faintly of wine and cold food. The envelopes were still scattered across the table. The UV lamp had finally burned out. I didn't turn on the lights. Outside the city hummed softly cars passing on the distant highway, the low rumble of a plane overhead. But inside there was only silence. I thought about Trevor, not the man they'd taken away in handcuffs tonight, but the boy he used to be. I thought about the summer of 2007. Trevor was 17. He'd been drinking at a party in Lake Oswego. He got behind the wheel anyway. He hit a mailbox, then a fence, then wrapped his car around a telephone pole. Richard drove out there in the middle of the night. He paid for the damages. He talked to the neighbors. He made sure no charges were filed. "He's just a kid," Richard had said. "He deserves a second chance." But Trevor never changed. He took the money. He took the forgiveness. And he kept taking. Richard knew. He must have known. That's why he built the trap. My phone buzzed on the table. I picked it up. "Detective Sarah Moss." I answered. "Mrs. Westbrook," she said. "I'm sorry to call so late, but there's something you need to know." I closed my eyes. "Go ahead." We ran Vanessa Clark's fingerprints through the national database. Her real name is Vanessa Lawson. She's wanted in 2 other states. My chest tightened. She was married twice before Detective Moss continued. Once in Seattle, once in San Francisco. Both husbands ended up gone within 18 months of the wedding. Both times the same substance was found in their systems. Both times she inherited everything. I felt the air leave my lungs. Trevor was going to be her third, I said quietly. "Yes, ma'am." I sat there holding the phone, staring at nothing. "We're charging her with 2 counts of harm in the 1st degree, Detective Moss said, "along with conspiracy fraud and attempted harm here in Oregon. She's not getting out." "And Trevor," I asked. "He's being held on conspiracy and destruction of property. But based on the evidence, it's clear he didn't know about her plans to end him. The DA is considering a reduced sentence if he cooperates." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Thank you, Detective." "Mrs. Westbrook," she said gently. "You did the right thing." I wasn't sure I believed her, but I thanked her anyway. The call ended. I sat in the dark for a long time. Then I heard the front door open. Frank stepped inside. He didn't knock. He never did. "You still awake?" he asked. "Couldn't sleep," I said. He walked over and sat down across from me. He set something small on the table between us. "A key." "What's that?" I asked. "Richard's key," Frank said. "The one to the storage unit. He gave it to me 2 weeks before he passed. Told me to hold on to it until you were ready." I stared at the key. It was small, brass, worn smooth at the edges. "He said you'd know when the time was right," Frank continued. "And I think tonight's that night." I picked up the key. It was heavier than I expected. "There's more in there than just money," Frank said quietly. "Richard left you something, a letter, instructions. He wanted you to see it when this was all over." My throat tightened. "It's time, Diane," Frank said. "Richard's storage unit is waiting for you." I looked down at the key in my hand, and for the first time all night, I felt something other than grief. I felt ready. The storage facility sat at the edge of North Portland's industrial district, tucked between a lumber yard and a row of shipping containers. The building was concrete and steel functional, anonymous, forgettable. Frank pulled into the lot at 9 in the morning. I sat in the passenger seat, the brass key still warm in my hand. "You ready?" he asked. I nodded. I wasn't sure I meant it. Victor Stone was waiting for us at the entrance, a gray-haired man in his 60s with a weathered face and a clipboard. He'd been managing the facility for 20 years. Richard had trusted him. "Mrs. Westbrook," Victor said, extending his hand. "I'm sorry for your loss. Richard was a good man." "Thank you," I said. He led us down a narrow hallway lit by fluorescent lights. Our footsteps echoed on the concrete floor. At the end of the hall, he stopped in front of a heavy steel door. "Unit 7A. Victor gestured to the keypad. "Your husband set this up himself, said only you would have the code." I stepped forward. My fingers hovered over the numbers. 1-2-0-1-2-4. The day Richard passed. January 20th, 2024. The lock clicked. The door opened. I stepped inside and stopped. It was Richard's office. Not a copy, not a replica. It was his office rebuilt down to the smallest detail. The oak desk he'd inherited from his father. The leather chair with the torn armrest he'd refused to replace. The framed photograph of us on our wedding day mounted on the wall beside the window. Except there was no window, just a painting of the Willamette River at sunrise. Frank stood beside me silent. In the center of the room was a large steel safe. I walked over. The combination lock was already open. Richard must have said it that way. I pulled the door open. Inside were stacks of cash, bound and labeled. Beside them, a portfolio of stock certificates in protective sleeves. And beneath that, deeds to 3 properties, 2 in Portland, 1 in Bend. I pulled out the envelope taped to the inside of the safe door. "For Diane, when you're ready." My hands shook as I opened it. Richard's handwriting. Neat, precise. Diane. If you're reading this, then Trevor found the storage unit, and you stopped him. I'm sorry I couldn't do this myself. I'm sorry I left you alone to face what I always knew was coming. Trevor has struggled his whole life. I wanted to believe he could change, but I also had to protect you. That's why I built this place. That's why I set the trap. Inside this safe, you'll find $18 million. $8 million in cash, $7 million in stock certificates, $3 million in real estate. The cash is yours. Do with it what you need. The stocks are for Trevor if he earns them. If he changes, if he proves he can be the man I hoped he'd become. If not, donate them. Build something good. There's a USB drive in the desk drawer. It's my last message to you. I recorded it 2 weeks before I passed. I love you, Diane. I always have. Richard. I folded the letter carefully, my vision blurred. Frank put a hand on my shoulder. You okay? I opened the desk drawer. Inside was a small black USB drive labeled in Richard's handwriting. For Diane, final words. I held it in my palm. It was so small, so light, but it felt like the weight of everything. Frank, I said quietly, I need to go home. I need to watch this alone. He nodded. I'll drive you. I looked around the room one last time. The desk, the chair, the painting of the river. Richard had left me more than money. He'd left me a choice, and I knew exactly what I was going to do. 6 months later, October 2025, I sat in the gallery of the Multnomah County Courthouse. The room was smaller than I'd expected. Rows of wooden benches, high ceilings, the Oregon State seal mounted above the judge's bench. Sunlight filtered through tall windows, casting long shadows across the floor. Frank sat beside me. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The bailiff called the court to order. Judge Maria Hensley entered a woman in her late 50s with silver hair and sharp, steady eyes. She'd reviewed the case for weeks. Today was sentencing. The state of Oregon versus Vanessa Lawson, the bailiff announced. Vanessa was led in first. She wore an orange jumpsuit. Her hands were cuffed in front of her. Her blonde hair was pulled back. Her face was calm, almost bored. She didn't look at me. Judge Hensley read the charges. 2 counts of ending lives in the first degree, Seattle and San Francisco. Conspiracy to end a life here in Oregon. Falsification of legal documents. Fraud. Attempted harm. Ms. Lawson, the judge said, you have shown no remorse. You have demonstrated a pattern of manipulation, deceit, and harm that spans multiple states and multiple victims. This court finds you guilty on all counts. She paused. You are sentenced to 25 years in the Oregon State Penitentiary. No possibility of parole. Vanessa didn't flinch. She just turned and walked back toward the door. As she passed my row, she glanced at me. Just once. Her eyes were empty. Next was Trevor. He looked smaller than I remembered, thinner. His hair was cut short, his shoulders slumped. When the bailiff brought him in, his eyes found mine immediately. He mouthed the words, I'm sorry. I didn't respond. Judge Hensley read his charges. Conspiracy to commit fraud, destruction of secured property, complicity in bribery. Mr. Westbrook. The judge said, the evidence shows you were manipulated by Mrs. Lawson, but you also made choices that endangered your family and violated the law. Trevor's lawyer stood. Your Honor, my client has cooperated fully with the investigation. He's expressed deep remorse. He's entered a rehabilitation program. I've read the reports, Judge Hensley said. Mr. Westbrook, you are sentenced to 8 years. With good behavior, you may be eligible for early release after 5. Trevor's knees buckled. The bailiff steadied him. He turned to me one more time. His face was wet with tears. Mom, he said, I'm so sorry. I looked away. Douglas Crane received 5 years for forgery and conspiracy. He'd cooperated with the investigation, which earned him a reduced sentence. Brian Mills, the security guard who'd taken Trevor's bribe, received 2 years. The courtroom emptied slowly. Frank and I walked out into the October sunlight. The air was cool and crisp. The trees along the courthouse steps were bright with autumn color gold and red and orange. "You okay?" Frank asked. "I will be," I said. 2 weeks later, I stood in a conference room downtown with a lawyer, an accountant, and a stack of paperwork. I signed my name at the bottom of the final page. The Richard Westbrook Foundation. $18 million, all of it. The foundation's mission was simple support. Victims of financial fraud, assist families affected by harmful substances, and provide legal aid and counseling for elderly individuals targeted by predators. Richard had wanted to build something good, something that lasted. Now I would do it for him. That night, I came home to the quiet house in Forest Heights. I walked upstairs to Richard's office. The USB drive was still on the desk where I'd left it 6 months ago. I hadn't been able to watch it, not yet. But now, after the trial, after the foundation, after everything, I was ready. I picked up the small black drive and held it in my hand. "It's time," I whispered. And I sat down to hear my husband's voice one last time. January 2026. The Oregon State Penitentiary was a 2-hour drive from Portland. I made the trip on a cold Tuesday morning, the road wet from overnight rain. Trevor looked different, thinner. His face had lost its softness. His hands were steady on the table between us. "I'm in a program," he said quietly. "Substance counseling, financial literacy, and I've been writing letters to the people I hurt." He showed me a stack of handwritten apologies, careful, deliberate. "I'm proud of you," I said. His eyes filled with tears. "I don't deserve that." "Maybe not," I said, "but you're trying. That's more than you've ever done before." I reached across the table and took his hand. "I'm not ready to forgive you, Trevor," I said softly. "But I still love you, and I'm not giving up on you." He squeezed my hand. "Thank you, Mom." That evening, I stood along the Willamette River. The sun was setting behind the West Hills, painting the sky pink and gold. The water moved slowly, reflecting the light. I thought about the 47 families the Richard Westbrook Foundation had helped in 3 months. 47 people who'd been lied to, stolen from hurt, and were now getting a second chance. That was Richard's legacy, and mine. When I got home, I climbed the stairs to Richard's office. I sat down at his desk and plugged in the USB drive. Richard's face appeared on the screen. He was sitting in this same chair 2 weeks before he passed. "Hi, sweetheart," he said. His voice broke something inside me. "If you're watching this, then everything worked. You stopped Trevor. You protected yourself." He smiled, tired but warm. "I'm sorry I couldn't be there, but I knew you didn't need me. You've always been the strongest person I know, the heart of this family." He leaned forward. "I built the trap because I love you, because I needed you to have the tools to fight back. Not just the money, the proof, the evidence, the truth." His eyes softened. "Don't carry guilt, Diane. Don't carry anger. You did what you had to do. I'm so proud of you." He paused. "Live your life now. Be happy. Build something beautiful." The screen went dark. I sat there, tears streaming down my face. "I will, Richard," I whispered. "I promise." 3 months later, April 2026, I stood in Richard's office for the last time. I decided to close the room, not to forget, but to move forward. I packed away the photographs, the books, the papers. I left the painting of the Willamette River on the wall, one last reminder. I walked to the window and looked out over Portland. The city stretched below me, bridges, buildings, the river, winding through it all. I was 64 years old. I'd lost my husband. I'd lost my son, at least for now. I'd faced betrayal and harm and heartbreak, but I was still here, and I was stronger than I'd ever been. I closed the door behind me, locked it, and I walked downstairs into the light. The legacy wasn't what they'd tried to take from me. It was what I chose to build. Looking back on everything that happened, I realized this wasn't just another family drama stories moment. It was a lesson about trust boundaries and the price of love. I've heard so many grandma stories over the years, stories of betrayal and survival, but I never thought I'd become one of them. I was the woman who trusted too easily, who wanted to believe my son could change, who nearly paid for that belief with my life. Don't be like me. Don't ignore the warning signs. Don't let love blind you to the truth. God gave us instincts for a reason. When something feels wrong, it usually is. I ignored mine for too long, and it almost cost me everything. The real lesson from these family drama stories: boundaries aren't walls, they're bridges. They protect what matters while still leaving room for connection. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say no to the people you love most. For all the grandma stories you've heard, remember this strength isn't about being unbreakable. It's about knowing when to fight, when to forgive, and when to walk away. These family drama stories teach us that legacy isn't what people try to take from us. It's what we choose to build. And these grandma stories, they're proof that age isn't weakness. It's wisdom. It's power. If my story helped you in any way, please subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support means the world. Final note: this content contains dramatized storytelling elements for educational purposes. Some details are fictionalized, but the lessons and messages are entirely valuable. If this style isn't for you, that's okay. Please seek content that better suits your needs.